Okay, let's talk about the dissertation. Yeah, that one word alone is enough to make your heart skip a beat, right? It feels like this impossibly huge mountain. But what if we thought about it differently? What if it's not a paper, but a quest? A real adventure with a map, clear milestones, and an incredible destination. In this explainer, we're going to do just that. We're going to deconstruct that quest and break it all down into a clear, totally manageable path to your PhD. So if you're staring down the barrel of a, 60, 80, maybe 100,000 word project, and you're feeling a little bit of panic setting in, trust me, you are not alone. It is a massive undertaking. But here's the secret to conquering any great challenge: structure. And that's exactly what we're going to build today: a solid framework to guide you from that terrifying blank page all the way to a finished, bound thesis. So here's our game plan. First, we'll define the quest itself. Then we'll draw our map with the introduction and lit review. After that, we actually embark on the journey with methods and results. Then we'll figure out what it all means in the discussion and conclusion. And finally, we'll cover the super important, non-negotiable rules of the road. All right, let's kick things off. Part 1, your quest. Before we get into all the nitty-gritty details, we gotta get our mindset right. This isn't just some long, painful assignment. No way. This is the grand finale of your academic journey. It's the story of your unique contribution to your field. And yeah, the numbers are big. We're talking anywhere from 60,000 to 120,000 words. But don't let that freak you out. The key word here is story. A good dissertation has a clear beginning, a middle, and an end. It asks a question, it describes an investigation, and it reveals a discovery. And guess what? You're the author. And every great story, every epic quest, starts with a pretty simple idea or a question. It doesn't have to be some earth-shattering revelation right away. It could be something like, hey, how do we stop teachers from burning out? Or, what's leadership's role in creating an inclusive culture? Maybe you're curious about crisis leadership, or how different leadership styles affect motivation. All of these are fantastic starting points for an incredible research journey. Okay, so let's move on to our second section. Before any explorer just wanders into the wild, they need a map, right? Well, for your dissertation, that map has two main parts: your introduction and your literature review. This is where you figure out exactly where you're going and you study the paths that others have already walked. Your introduction is basically the X that marks the spot on your treasure map. It has one core job: to answer the big question, what are we studying and why on earth does it even matter? This is the chapter that grabs your reader, gets them oriented, and makes a really compelling case for why your quest is so important. And that map key has a few essential parts. You've got to give the background and context, state the specific problem you're tackling, define your purpose, set your boundaries with scope and limitations, and, this is the big one, explain the significance. What new thing is your work bringing to the table? Get this right, and you've built the foundation for everything else. Now for the literature review. If the intro is your destination, the lit review is you studying all the old maps drawn by the explorers who came before you. And you're not just making a list of who went where. No, you're analyzing their journeys to find the blank spots on the map, the uncharted territory. That's the gap in knowledge that only your research can fill. The process here is super logical. You start by summarizing what we already know. Then, and this is key, you critically analyze it. What are the strengths, the weaknesses? Where are the debates? This is how you avoid just making a boring laundry list of studies. You have to synthesize, connect the dots. When you do that, it leads you right to the gaps. And once you've found that gap, boom, you've just built the perfect justification for your own research. You've proven why your journey is absolutely necessary. All right, our map is drawn, our purpose is clear, it's time for the journey itself. This section is all about your methodology and your results chapters. This is where you detail your expedition step by step and report, totally objectively, on whatever treasures you discovered along the way. Think of the methodology chapter as your expedition logbook. It is all about transparency and rigor. You have to explain exactly how you did what you did, your research design, how you collected data, how you analyzed it, and, just as importantly, why you made those choices. Pro tip: write this chapter as you go. Seriously, don't try to remember all these tiny details months from now. The golden rule here is to provide enough detail that another researcher could pick up your logbook and perfectly replicate your entire journey. Now, this slide right here clarifies one of the biggest trip-ups for students. The results chapter is simply the what. It is purely descriptive. You just present your data, tables, graphs, key quotes, without trying to interpret it. You're just saying, here's what I found, period. The discussion chapter, which we're about to get to, is the so what. That's where you explain what it all means. It is so important to keep these two things separate. And that brings us perfectly to our fourth section, finding the meaning. This is where your discussion and conclusion chapters shine. You've reported your discoveries. Now you get to be the expert who interprets them and tells the world why your quest was so significant. So, this is where you really get to put on your scholar hat. You explain what your results actually mean in the context of your research questions. You connect your findings back to all those maps you studied in the literature review. Do your findings confirm what others found? Do they contradict them? You discuss the real-world implications, and importantly, you honestly acknowledge any limitations of your own study. Trust me, acknowledging your limits doesn't weaken your work, it shows you're a careful, credible researcher. And finally, the conclusion. This is your mic drop moment. It's the grand finale. You bring your reader full circle. You summarize your main findings, you powerfully emphasize the new original contribution you've made to the world, and you point the way forward by suggesting what quests future explorers might want to take on. It is your final, definitive statement on everything you achieved. Now, it's worth a quick mention that the map can look a little different depending on what field you're in. In STEM and a lot of social sciences, you'll follow this classic I'm rad structure we've been talking about. But in the humanities, it might be structured more like a long, thematic essay, building an argument chapter by chapter. The core principles are all the same, but the layout might vary. So, know your field. Okay, we've walked the entire path, but before you can finally submit this thing, you have to follow the rules of the road. This last section is all about the practical, non-negotiable little details that can literally make or break your submission. Don't tune this part out. First up, the word count. This is a hard rule. Know your department's specific limit and stick to it. Going over, even by a little, can mean an automatic rejection before a single person even reads page 1. Seriously. Next, spacing. I know, it sounds so minor, but it's a firm rule. It's almost always going to be 1.5 or double spacing. Don't get creative here. Find the rule in your university's guide and just follow it. And margins. The standard is usually 1 inch all around, but you have to check your university's guide. Sometimes they require a wider margin on the left for binding, and if you get that wrong, you might have to reformat your entire, massive document at the very last minute. Nightmare fuel. And here's your final pre-flight checklist. You need a perfect title page, a concise abstract, a detailed table of contents, a perfectly consistent citation style, no exceptions, and appendices for any extra stuff like interview notes or raw data. These are not suggestions, people, they are requirements. And this brings us to the single most important rule of this entire section. So listen up. Do not, I repeat, do not just copy the formatting from your friend's dissertation from last year. University guidelines change all the time. You must find the latest, most up-to-date official guide from your school and follow it to the letter. This is the final hurdle. Please don't stumble here. So, there you have it, the dissertation deconstructed from this overwhelming mountain into a structured, achievable quest. Look, it's a huge project for sure, but it is also this incredible, unique opportunity. It's a story of discovery that only you can write. The only question left is, what's your story going to be?